The moment my father announced that my brother would receive Grandma's entire inheritance, everyone at the table started clapping. Everyone except me. My father lifted his glass. To Daniel, he said. The one who always knew what to do with an opportunity. My brother smiled. My mother hugged him. And I sat there staring at the empty chair where Grandma used to sit every Sunday. Then my father looked at me. Rachel, I hope you understand. I almost laughed. Because for 29 years, I had understood exactly what my family thought of me. Daniel was the responsible one. Daniel was the successful one. Daniel was the son Grandma supposedly trusted most. I was the daughter who had moved away, started a small business, and apparently never amounted to much. But that night, my family had made one enormous mistake. They thought Grandma had left them a simple inheritance. She hadn't. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 33 years old, and for most of my childhood, my older brother Daniel could do no wrong. He graduated from college with honors. He became a financial advisor. He bought a beautiful home. My parents constantly told everyone how proud they were of him. I took a different path. After college, I started a small event planning business from my apartment. For years, I struggled. There were months when I wasn't sure I could pay myself. My parents never understood it. Whenever we had family dinner, my mother would ask the same question. When are you going to get a real job? Daniel always had something to say. You should just sell the business and work for a company. I usually smiled and changed the subject. But Grandma was different. She believed in me. Every time I visited her, she asked about my business. Not how much money I made. Not whether I had bought a house. She asked what I was building. And whenever I told her I was struggling, she'd say, "Give good things time, Rachel." I never forgot that. When Grandma died, my family gathered at her house to discuss the inheritance. I expected the house to be sold. I expected the money to be divided. What I didn't expect was my father announcing that Daniel would receive nearly everything. The house, the investment accounts, and the majority of her personal assets, Dad said. I stared at him. What about me? He sighed. You'll receive something. How much? My father looked uncomfortable. $20,000. Daniel immediately said, that's fair. I looked at him. Fair? He shrugged. Dad said Grandma wanted me to manage everything. I looked at my mother. Did she tell you that? My mother avoided my eyes. Then Dad said the sentence that finally broke something inside me. Rachel, Daniel is more financially responsible. Grandma knew he'd make better decisions. I stood up. Okay. My father frowned. Okay. Yes. I picked up my purse. I hope he does. Daniel laughed. Don't be dramatic. I stopped at the door. Then I looked back at him. You know, Daniel, Grandma spent more time talking to me about her life than she ever talked to you about money. His smile disappeared. I left. For the next 3 weeks, I didn't contact anyone. I went back to work. My business had changed dramatically over the previous year. What had once been a tiny event planning company had become a national corporate events agency. We had clients in 12 states. I had 20 employees. And we'd just signed our largest contract yet. My family still didn't know. They thought I was barely surviving. I didn't correct them. Then, one Monday morning, I received a phone call from Grandma's attorney. His name was Mr. Harrison. Rachel, I need you to come to my office. Is something wrong? No. He paused. Actually, something is very wrong. I drove there that afternoon. Mr. Harrison placed a thick envelope on his desk. Your grandmother left specific instructions. I stared at him. What kind? He opened the envelope. Her original will was never the final document. I froze. What? She created a second estate plan 6 months before she died. My heart started pounding. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because she instructed me not to. He slid a document across the desk. I read the first page. Then the second. My hands started shaking. Grandma had not left the majority of her estate to Daniel. She had placed her assets into a trust. And I was the beneficiary. But there was one condition. I couldn't access everything immediately. I had to meet a requirement Grandma had written into the trust. Mr. Harrison looked at me. She wanted you to use the money to expand the business you were building. I stared at him. She knew. She knew everything. He reached into the envelope again. There is also a letter. I opened it. Grandma's handwriting covered the page. She wrote that she'd watched me spend years building something from nothing. She wrote that she didn't care whether my business became huge. She cared that I was building a life I believed in. Then came the part that made me cry. She said she had deliberately allowed my parents to believe Daniel would inherit everything, because she wanted to see whether my family would value me without knowing what I was worth. I lowered the letter. Why would she do that? Mr. Harrison answered quietly. Because she told me she was afraid your family had confused money with worth. Then he handed me another document. It contained the final numbers. Grandma's estate was worth $6.2 million. And almost all of it was now legally mine. But I didn't tell my family. Not yet. 2 weeks later, my parents invited everyone to dinner. Daniel arrived looking happier than I'd seen him in years. He had apparently already started planning what to do with Grandma's money. He talked about buying another property. My father talked about investments. My mother talked about remodeling Grandma's house. Nobody asked me how I was doing. Finally, Daniel turned toward me. Rachel, Dad told me you're still running that little event company. I smiled. I'm still running it. Still? Yes. He laughed. Some things never change. My father raised his glass. To Daniel, he said again. I almost laughed. Then someone knocked on the front door. My father's smile disappeared when he saw who it was. Mr. Harrison. Grandma's attorney. What are you doing here? Dad asked. Mr. Harrison looked at everyone. I was instructed to deliver the final estate documents personally. Daniel stood. You already handled the inheritance. Mr. Harrison shook his head. No, Daniel. He opened his briefcase. We handled the preliminary estate. The room went silent. Dad frowned. What does that mean? Mr. Harrison looked at me. Then he said, Your mother left a second will. Daniel's face changed. My father looked at me. You knew. I said nothing. Mr. Harrison continued. Under the final trust, the majority of Evelyn Morgan's estate passes to Rachel. Daniel suddenly laughed. No. Mr. Harrison placed the document on the table. $6.2 million in assets, including the family investment account and ownership of the property. My mother covered her mouth. My father stared at me. Daniel looked furious. You knew this whole time? I shook my head. I found out 2 weeks ago. And you said nothing? I looked at him. What exactly did you want me to say? Daniel stood. You let us believe I was getting everything. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. You were happy to let me believe I was getting $20,000. He went silent. My father finally spoke. Rachel, why would Grandma do this? I looked down at her letter. Then I answered. Because she knew you. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I continued. She knew you'd measure us by what we owned. My father looked away. Daniel said. She chose you over me. No. I shook my head. She didn't choose me over you. I placed Grandma's letter on the table. She chose to give me the opportunity she knew I'd use responsibly. Daniel stared at the paper. Then he asked, What are you going to do with the money? I thought about it. I'll invest most of it into my company. He looked shocked. You're serious? Yes. And the house? I smiled. I'm keeping Grandma's house. My mother whispered. Why? Because it's the one place in this family where I never felt like I had to compete with anyone. Nobody spoke. Then I did something my family didn't expect. I offered them one thing. Not money. Not the house. A chance. I told my parents they could continue living in Grandma's home. But the property would remain mine. And Daniel? I told him I wouldn't give him Grandma's money. But I'd give him something more useful. A job interview. Not a guaranteed position. Not a family favor. An interview at my company. He looked offended. You'd make me interview for a job? Yes. I'm your brother. Exactly. I looked at him. And for once, I'd like you to earn something instead of inheriting it. He walked out. For months, things were awkward. My father barely spoke to me. My mother slowly started calling. Daniel refused my job offer. But eventually, something changed. He started his own financial planning business. For the first time, He had to build something without our parents standing behind him. And strangely enough, we became closer. Not immediately. Not perfectly. But honestly. A year later, I stood in Grandma's kitchen with my mother. She was making her famous apple pie. The same recipe she'd taught me when I was little. My mother looked at me. I owe you an apology. I didn't answer. She continued. We spent so many years thinking Daniel was the successful one. I smiled. Mom, you didn't know what I was building. She looked at me. We didn't ask. That was the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts more than an insult. I hugged her. Not because everything was forgotten, but because I didn't want Grandma's final gift to become another reason our family hated each other. Today, my company is bigger than I ever imagined. I still have Grandma's house. Her kitchen table sits exactly where it always did. And her letter is framed in my office. Not because it reminds me that I inherited $6.2 million. It reminds me of something far more important. My worth was never waiting inside a bank account. Grandma simply gave me the chance to stop letting other people decide what that worth was. And the night my family thought my brother had inherited everything, they believed I had lost. They were wrong. I didn't lose my grandmother. I didn't lose my future. And I certainly didn't lose my value. Because sometimes the person sitting quietly at the end of the table isn't the person with the least power. Sometimes she's the one holding the final letter.